Welcome to Women Talking Soccer. I'm your host, Carrie Taylor. The goal of this podcast is to amplify the voices of all women who love the beautiful game. Whether you're on the field, cheering from the stands, work in the business, want to be in the business, or are a passionate change maker, your voice is important. This podcast is presented by Women in Soccer. Women in Soccer is a network of women and allies involved in our favorite sport. You can join Women in Soccer for free online at womeninsoccer.org. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Women Talking Soccer. Today, I'm super excited to talk to my twin because we both have the same shirts on, as strong as the woman next to me, Yewande. We didn't plan this, everybody. Like, we just showed up and we, as strong women, happened to get our power from our amazing shirts. So thank you so much for coming on. And as we do with all the guests, can you just introduce yourself and tell our listeners a little bit about who you are and your background in the game of soccer?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Carrie. Excited to be here in our matching shirts.
I love it. I love it.
So, like I said, my name is Yewande Balogun. I am originally from Maryland. I grew up playing soccer in the DMV area, DC, Maryland, Virginia, for those that don't know. Actually recently got put on the map. Shout out Midge Purse. Thank you. I played college soccer at the University of Maryland. Was in and out with the youth national teams growing up all the way through the U20 national team pool, played W League with the then Washington Freedom and in Ottawa with the Ottawa Fury. And now I've been coaching in the college game for about 5 years now, specializing in goalkeepers. And I'm currently an assistant coach at UC Davis.
With Tracy Ham, who is a great person to learn from and have by your side and collaborate with.
Absolutely.
So when did you decide, like, hey, I want to pursue coaching as my career?
So I guess I'd always known that I wanted to be a soccer coach when I was done playing. But I guess my journey was a little bit different because my career was actually cut short due to injury. So I didn't want to coach right away. Honestly, having that injury, it broke me. Well, yes, physically, but also like emotionally and mentally and, all the things. And I'd actually tried really hard to run away from soccer. And because I just felt like I was robbed, like I wasn't done playing. And, I decided I was done with the game. So I'd never played, didn't talk about it, didn't watch, like now, trying to figure out who I was without the game. And I guess in that time, I realized that the game wasn't actually done with me. I'd get calls, about training, club coaching, college coaching. I ignored all of them. And meanwhile, here I was like trying to figure out like how else to have purpose in life, outside of, my corporate job that I was working at the time. And knowing that I wanted to be a leader and a mentor in some capacity. And I guess after a while, I realized I couldn't ignore those calls anymore. And it just kind of made sense. And, I had to kind of get over myself and my own hurt to, get back into the game and help, other young women in the, in the sport. And yeah, that's, I guess, my journey. So.
No, and thank you for sharing that. And I think a lot of people struggle with that when they stop playing. It's like your identity and who you are gets tied into that game. And just hearing that, I could hear the emotion and feel the emotion that you went through, things that you went through. And honestly, the game is lucky to have you. So I'm glad you decided to really, give back and follow that passion, because the corporate world, they got enough people. We need more people like you in the game, being, strong role models for women and for men and boys and girls. And so that's, I'm glad you decided to be a coach. So what, now that you've kind of found your purpose, what really speaks to you, and what do you like feel is your special ingredient that you can give to your players and you can give to your other staff members and that you can give to the game? Like what really is your secret sauce?
Okay. I guess, for me, it was always just thinking about like the capacity of this game has to kind of shape, who you are as a person. I just think it's so incredible, like the skills and the characteristics and traits that you can learn from the game. Of course, there's teamwork, there's camaraderie, there's all that. That's awesome. But also that drive, that competitiveness, the perseverance, creativity, the adaptability, all these things. And I guess for me as a coach, it's really just to be able to help like young women kind of realize and actualize all of those qualities, to not only be, great on the pitch, but also to be able to transfer some of those skills into their everyday lives so that they can be, great beyond the pitch. Like
Right.
I don't think I'm the person that's going to go out and change the world, but if I can help someone else become the best version of themselves so that they can go and do it, awesome. So I guess that's kind of where I'm at.
You're changing the world. Stop it. You are. We all are. We all are.
Yeah.
What's it like to be a part of an all-female staff? Is that something like, can you kind of explain that? Because that's rare. I think Tracy and you had said that there's only like 5 college staffs out there or something, like a very small handful. So
yeah, a handful.
What's that like?
Honestly, it's great. And it wasn't anything, especially growing up, right? I had a handful of women coaches here and there, but the majority of my coaches were men growing up. And so I think just being a part of it now is just like, it's just awesome to see, other women being able to do what we've only really ever seen men do for ourselves, and especially being, so educated, like all of us have like multiple degrees and, so it's not even just the soccer piece. It's just like this all encompassing just, group of women who are just, getting after it. And I'm learning from each of them every single day and, just trying to do my part to make it better. But it's honestly, I love it. So, yeah.
That's great. Yeah. And I think I'm proud. I went to the University of Michigan and I believe they're one of the other
Yes.
colleges that has an all-female staff. So I'm like, yay. Shout out to Jen Klein and her staff. I got to get my Michigan plug in there.
As always.
Yeah. So can you talk to our listeners a little bit about why you got involved with the Women in Soccer group and kind of, what that is a little bit and why people should maybe get involved?
Yeah. So I got involved, again, shout out Tracy Ham. So, she was the connection for me, definitely. And I guess how I got involved was, during the Black Lives Matter movement of 2020, I became pretty outspoken about, racial injustice and, inequality on a larger scale, and about how racism, whether overtly or covertly, kind of manifested itself in my life as a Black woman, particularly, as a former student athlete, and now, as a college coach. And I guess me speaking out about that kind of caught, Courtney and Rachel's eye, and of course,
Right.
Again, Casey was the plug. So a lot of my, role in the group is going to surround, equity and diversity and inclusion, but, also another one of our members, Kadani McAlpine, hey,
USC head women's coach.
Yes. He's actually a really large part of the reason that I'm still coaching today.
Oh, tell us about that. Yeah. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So, he was one of the coaches that I kind of gravitated towards, when I started coaching, which I've only been coaching full-time, college coaching for about 5 years, so not that long. But, he has become like my unofficial mentor and just kind of like talking with him. And, after a few of my experiences, I wasn't sure that I wanted to continue coaching. And, he was definitely one of those people that pushed me to, stay in it and, kind of realize that it isn't just about me, like that representation is important and, all of those things. So because of that, I'm super passionate about allyship, because it's such an important part of moving the women's game forward and, uplifting the women within it. So it's kind of how I got involved with women in soccer. And I think just in general, I just think I'm so excited about what women in soccer is doing, for the greater women's soccer community. And I just think it's so important to have this space for ourselves to, to sort through some of our difficulties and how to overcome them, but, and change them, but also for our allies to now come in and figure out ways to help us as well. And, that visibility and accessibility that we have to, to each other, and this just network of people with similar goals and, with opportunities to learn and support one another. And just, it was a no-brainer for me. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your story about, your mentee mentor relationship with Kadani. And you mentioned a key thing, within the game, having good mentors, whether they're male or female, is so important. And, I have tons that have helped me along the way, and that, I've been able to go to lean on. And, when you're going through those experiences of challenges or thinking about, getting out of soccer, I've been there, like maybe this isn't for me, or maybe I can pivot my skills to something else. Like having people push you and say, yes, you can do this. And that's an intangible, and that's amazing that you and Kadani have that relationship and friendship, because that is important. It's very important. And the representation is something, that we all need to continue to change and push, and having a bigger pool of applicants for jobs, whether they're male, female, white, black, brown, purple, green, like that. Having those conversations are super, super important. And so, yeah, like, thank you for all you're doing to, to move those conversations forward, and really be outspoken, because that is important. And a lot of times, women especially are kind of like, well, maybe I shouldn't say that, or maybe I shouldn't say my political beliefs, or maybe I shouldn't do that. And this is the year that I'm noticing, 2020, it's like gloves are off.
Oh yeah.
Here's who I am. Here's what I support. This is why. Like, I don't care.
It's been a major shift. Absolutely. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great. Can you kind of talk about some of your goals, not only for yourself, but where you see women in the game going, in the future? And I like to say the future is female, but I want to know, like, what are some of your goals, and what are some things that you actually see for yourself and women in the future?
Wow. Okay. Wasn't really ready for that one.
That one wasn't on the list of questions.
No, it wasn't. I got to think, but
right.
No, I guess what's been really exciting for me, just again, for me in coaching, it's a lot of that hands-on, like being able to, help young women kind of like reach that next level for them, whatever that means for them. Right. And again, right now it's super hands-on because I'm a coach and I'm in it. But I think for me, like maybe looking beyond and figuring out how I can do that on a larger scale. Mm-hmm. I don't know what that looks like yet. Haven't gotten to that point, but that's where my mind goes. But I think in general, like it's really exciting about like the women's game right now is there's just so much, publicity and media surrounding the women's game, like here and abroad, right? Like not always on the main networks just yet, but the fact that I know like where to go and how to quickly access like NWSL games, like the Women's Super League, the Women's Champions League, all these things, women's college soccer even, so that for me is huge, especially for like the young women that are coming up and they're able to watch that, like all we had growing up was like the Final Four on ESPN3 or U or whatever. And, I guess the College Cup, we should call it. And then, the World Cup every 4 years and like the occasional WUSA game, and so just the fact that it's I think trending upwards in that sense, like that's kind of what excites me. So just that visibility, right? And just being able to see and access it a lot more, and just knowing that more like young girls and women have that opportunity to see what is the future for them, you know? So.
So I know this about your program at Cal Davis of Tracy forcing the players to, and those are her words, forcing the players to get their grassroots coaching license.
Yep.
What would you, what advice would you give to a young male or female who's interested in getting into coaching or getting into, that wants to be a goalkeeper coach? Like what advice could you give to somebody that's trying to get into the game or thinking about becoming a coach?
My biggest advice would be just to never stop learning, right? There's always something new that you can learn. And I definitely, I learned that, firsthand about just always doing your own, like just taking it into your own hands, right? Your own development. You can ask for help whenever you need it for sure. But I think just, no one's going to invest in you if you don't invest into yourself. So, learning as much as possible, like from different styles, different coaches, like the game is always changing. So it never stops. So I think that is definitely my biggest advice. And I love that Tracy did that and forced the girls to do it. Because not only is it like an eye opener for them about like, okay, like this is the path that I have to take if I do want to coach, but it also maybe for them starts them on the path of thinking the way that we do. So maybe they don't question as many of our decisions, right?
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Understand a little bit more of like where we're coming from when we say and do the things that we say and do.
So. Yeah, there's definitely a method to the madness.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's something that I've done with some of my teams is, hey, okay, it's your practice to design today. And the players are like, okay. And then they have to explain it to their teammates and they go, oh my gosh, like this is actually pretty hard.
Oh yeah, because you can know the game as well as you want, but having to, explain it in a way that others understand and you can get your point across, totally different. Yeah. Totally different.
and quickly and get players moving and
absolutely. Like so many moving parts.
Yes, definitely. So talk to me a little bit about your thoughts, and I'm gonna spring this one on you. The women's national team, there was an equity or a closer to equity decision this week. So yes. What are your thoughts on, what's going on that front? You had referenced that you'd come up through the youth national teams. What are your thoughts on where they're at and where the equal pay and all of that is kind of going?
I mean, I think that's a huge win. We all know that there's such a long way to go still, but I mean, I think it all goes hand in hand with the amount of, publicity and media and everything that women's soccer is now getting. I think it was kind of, their hand was forced a little bit to kind of do it, which, however, get it done, how to get it done, but that to me is just super exciting because I think the amount of work that, those women on the national team have put in to get to where they are and to not see the fruits of their labors in the same way that the men do is like, it was tough to see. Tough to watch. So I'm grateful for it and I'm excited for it. And I just hope that is like, the door opening for, more of that equity to kind of show itself in, in the future.
Right. You had referenced that representation and is super important. How do we as a coaching society get more women of color, people of color, that entry into sport? What are some ideas and what are some things that you feel are important? I have my own and I'll give my 2 cents, but I want you to talk about it because I know that's important to you and the percentages of what teams look like basis what the population looks like, it's totally out of whack. So can you talk to the listeners about that a little bit?
Absolutely. I think you made a really good point too about just, what the numbers look like the people playing soccer versus, honestly who's into coaching, but like what it looks like around, like throughout the world. Like it's very different in the US, versus what it looks like in the world. And I think a lot of that has to do with that accessibility. I think the pay to play model.
Yeah. This is a free space. You can
Yeah.
say whatever you want.
I'm trying to be, I have a lot of thoughts.
That's why go. This isn't you as a soccer coach at Cal Davis. This is Yewande speaking her truth. So go.
All right. But yeah, I think the pay to play model has really just done a number on what soccer could be in this country. Thinking about how much it costs to play now in the top leagues, in the ECNL and, what was the DA, I guess the GA now. If that was the cost of playing at the highest level when I was coming up, like I wouldn't have been able to afford to play. Yeah. And I mean, that it's just simple. So I think the fact that now it's becoming, more of this white collar sport in this country is really kind of taking away the opportunities from, some of the lesser fortunate families, which a lot of them unfortunately do happen to be, people of color.
Right.
And so I think once that changes and we're, going back to finding the talent in those areas and developing talent in those areas, it's still going to be moving in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what that looks like to, make that change, but
it's, the youth pay to play model has become this like massive machine in my opinion. And it's, again, I've lived in that space for a long time. I'm no longer in that space, but I think, those of us who recognize the problem, that barrier to entry, we need to try to figure out like how do we change that? How do we, go out to the fields and watch players playing pickup who can't afford to play, whether they're Black, white, Latino, whatever. But there's a whole vast amount of young people out there that just don't know that there's an opportunity to get into soccer and to go to college and play soccer and all that. And, like it's a problem. It's a real problem. And
you mentioned too, right? Just going to watch people play pickup and everything. And that doesn't even happen as often anymore, right? If you don't have a permit for a field, you can't get on there. So those games don't even happen as much anymore. So it's, and even if there is that raw talent there, right? Like those kids can't afford now to go get into a space where they're getting the good coaching and they're getting the, those opportunities to be seen. So it's this.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. Yeah.
Yes.
Let's talk about something positive.
Yes, I love that idea.
Yes. So, where do you see like obviously I'm not going to talk about COVID in 2020, but where do you see, let's pretend everything's great in 2021. Where do you see, the Cal Davis women going? Like, what are some positives about your team and what you and Tracy and the staff are doing for the women in your program? Tell us about your players. Brag on them a little bit.
Can do. Yeah, no, I'm actually super excited to be a part of, of this staff and, what Tracy is bringing and being able to learn from Tracy and Jody. For me, just super excited about being there. And our focus has been just our team dynamic and our team culture, and just getting into that like spirit of competitiveness, like all the time. Right. And it's not competing against each other, it's competing together. Mm-hmm. And I think we are really starting to get into that space and like having that mentality, and like kind of what it takes to compete, in the Big West and, be contenders for a Big West championship. And I think our girls have honestly kind of just taken this in stride, the whole COVID situation. And we finally got to play this past fall a little bit. Like we had our little 6 weeks, of training, and just the growth that we saw in that time was, just incredible. So having another spring together to train before we really do go compete, next fall, and the group that we have coming in, I think we have I'm just thinking about our team and I'm just getting so excited. But
no, I love that. Like, tell us more. Tell us more.
It's just really about like putting the pieces all together, really. So I think come next fall, like we're gonna have fun. I don't want to. I don't want to jinx it. I'm like talking and I'm just like, let me just back off a little bit. But
no, your face lights up when you talk about the team. I love that.
No, I mean, and obviously, like my goalkeeper unit is, phenomenal. I'm really lucky to have a group that they really do lift each other up. It's never there isn't that like, we're competing, we want to be better, and like we're competing for, a starting position, obviously, right? Like as a goalkeeper unit, but it's never this like, oh wow, I'm not playing and I'm gonna like sulk and be bitter, right? Like they're each other's biggest fans, right. And that I'm super like I'm lucky to have been able to like to see that and continue to cultivate that relationship. So yeah,
I love that you said competing together, and I wrote that down. I was like, wow, like that's like you can compete, but you can do it and in a way where you build each other up and not tear each other down. So
I mean, we all have, that one common goal. Like, sure, you want to be the best player that you can be, and we want that for you. But like, Tracy always says like, it's a program, and then it's a team, and then it's me, right? Like that is the hierarchy. So it's like, whatever we're doing, it's for the good of the program. And then, what's best for the team. And then you're thinking about yourself.
Yeah.
So
that's great.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, I'm going to hit you up with a couple of questions here. What's your favorite quote? Like what do you kind of, it gets you out of bed in the morning, or, when you're feeling down, you look to a specific thing and like, what's your life quote?
It is, I had a few, so this one was tough for me.
No, you can say one or two, like, depends on the day for me.
Honestly, it does. It really does. But I think my top one is you either win or you learn. You only lose when you stop moving. I think I might have actually kind of like combined two quotes together with that one, but it works for me, So it helped me kind of reframe what success and failure, means. And it kind of reminds me that like, no matter the outcome, right? Like successful, cool, build on it, right? Didn't work out, awesome. You gave it effort. Now you learn from it and you grow, but just always keep moving forward.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, we all need to think about that because everything's not always rosy. That's for sure.
No. And if nothing else taught us that, 2020 for sure did. So
absolutely. And speaking of 2020, I've been reading a lot of books in 2020 just because I've had so much extra time. So do you have any book recommendations for our listeners, or anything that you think people should really dig into? Or what your favorite book?
Yes.
Or two or three.
I do have a couple, but the one that I actually picked up again recently, just randomly, was Dare to Lead by Brene Brown.
Yes.
That one was a really big one for me. Not that I really ever had a problem with empathy and vulnerability, but like almost like I have those things almost to a fault. And so I kind of shied away from confrontation and, those tough conversations. And I think reading that book just really gave me license to be bolder and standing up for, I guess, what I believe in, and like setting and keeping boundaries, right? And like being courageous enough to trying to show up as my full self every day, because I definitely didn't always do that, and just that authenticity, right? Like I think a certain way, but like to be able to live that every day was just hard because it was uncomfortable, even though maybe it shouldn't have been, but yeah. So that book was really good for me. So if you haven't read it, read it.
I like that one. Brene Brown is great. I've listened to a lot of her podcasts and things
Yes.
this year.
I love how you're like, oh yeah, Brene, like my friend Brene, you know?
I would love to be friends with Brene.
I know. Sometimes it really does feel like we're friends. Like I'll watch some of her videos and I'd be like, yeah, like
yeah. I would love to have coffee with her.
Absolutely.
Any other books? Any other books?
Trying to think which other ones. I guess all the other ones like will sound like super cliche, but like like How to Win Friends and Influence People, actually. Not the whole book, because some of it was actually hard to read. I'm not gonna lie to you people. But there are like chapters in it that I feel like really kind of helped me figure out how to just be, not that I'm not a people person, but like how to actually like engage in ways that, you know, allow me and the people that I'm interacting with to be, you know, successful. So yeah.
Well, I have no doubt that you will continue to be successful and continue to inspire those who you coach and those who you stand next to.
Thank you. Hope so.
And again, you're my twin with our As Strong as the Woman Next to Me shirt. Yeah. And you know, that's something that in listening to you, like that resonates. Like I can tell every day you're walking that walk and talking that talk and lifting others up and lifting other women up. So thank you for all you do for the game. Thank you for being you. And thank you for taking the time to come on and talk some soccer and allow everyone to get to know who you are and your journey in the game. So Yewande, thank you so much for joining.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carrie. Thanks for having me. And thank you for everything you're doing for women in soccer. Can't forget about that. And doing this podcast and having me on and all the things.
Sounds great. So thanks again for everyone listening. This was Women Talking Soccer, and we will talk to you again. We're on every Wednesday, and we appreciate you listening in. Have a good day.